Right, so this is the entity that is indeed stalking in planes and helicopters. And the helicopter is over here. They're engaged in criminal summoning. The entity, that's the plane, flying way over there. And here's the helicopter. They're flying in a circle. Stalking in the path in helicopter, okay? That's what's amplified inside of the apartment. That's called the evidence of amplification at that great distance, but yet I'm hearing it in the apartment. And I want to be clear, that's their effort at being subtle because I'm documenting the P.O.C. They've been captured in years engaging the P.O.C. Flying in the path where your shadows are upright. You see that light right there? You see this light right here? That doesn't create a shadow that's upright. This is a shadow down here. That's the Ontario Police Department that Mike Lorenz is no longer going to be the head demon over, and that's the department that's going to be disbanded. They're engaged in surveillance with this demon in apartment number 55, who's being documented by a podcast right now, who's engaging in terrorism, stalking in the living room, maintaining 24-hour presence while this demon knows that I'm in the living room here, engaged in stalking with audible activity, engaged in amplified audible activity as though the ceiling is going to be cracking and the walls are going to be creating noise around you while they're pacing back and forth. This is a demon. All right. And engineered light. This is exactly the light activity you saw at 2 o'clock in the afternoon under the fake sun. This is exactly what you saw. Those are the demons that are engaging in surveillance with 55, who's going to federal prison. And so is the demons in 41 Avanath communities. Okay, they're engaged in group stalking right now with the state. These demons aren't asleep and engineered light while the state is stalking using plane, helicopter, and train as methods of audible activity, which is what I'm documenting on the podcast in the apartment. And as I focus on this demon who's going to federal prison, so the entity begins this helicopter activity, okay? Just like you saw them flying directly over the apartment today, that's them group stalking in the path. And there's no reasonable question. Those are the idiots that are going to federal prison. Okay, that's a light activity, demonic pacing, and doing so in the specific environment. And the light activity is what supersedes demons who are masquerading as police departments, whose group stalking is readily identified by the world and the federal government who's going to prosecute them. The impossible light activity, this is the property where the fake sun is rising and setting. This light activity has nothing to do with the property lights. Okay, that's the entity that's stalking in the path, and that should not be heard inside of the apartment. That's how you know what this demon in 55 is doing. All right, and they share the same condition. So while I'm at it, I want to make sure that I document the name of the fire chief who's going to be prosecuted for state surveillance. The entity is engaging in what is conduct, sounding sirens. This is a terrorist leader over a corrupt fire department who has demons who are operating fire trucks and occupying fire stations while they're engaged in state surveillance with the same demon-possessed police department who you saw in relevant position at a distance where it's impossible for me to hear helicopter inside of my apartment when they're engaging in the ongoing 24-hour surveillance, stalking day and night in helicopters. So what they did was they flew at a distance in a circle when they're equally engaged in stalking like they are every day. No one is persuaded that they're group stalking anyone else but me. Only delusional psychopaths like the demon in apartment 55 who's going to federal prison, literally based on the evidence that I just captured outside, and also while they are remaining in relevant position, acting with the government that's engaged in methods of terrorism, psychological torture, and harassment as an entity, because this demon in 55 who wants to be a sex offender and closeted psychopath group stalking someone cannot do it without, is engaging in what is showing their fear while they're being documented and they know it. Okay, it's no less probative when I'm typing it in Samsung Notes and then when I'm recording on the podcast. And as I do, the entity amplifies plane, helicopter, and train activity, all of which is impossible while the helicopter's at that distance. Secondly, while they're at their distance, they're equally engaged in group stalking with this demon in 55 in engineered light, which also fills this apartment and also is outside, like you just saw, the same identical light activity at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where this fake sun is both rising at 7:38 in the morning and setting at 6 p.m. at the same property. No one is fooled by what the demons of the Ontario Police Department, that Mike Lorenz, and this is a demon over the fire departments. They're engaged in the same criminal acts of summoning, exhibiting demon possession while light activity is created. The sirens are audible activity in the engineered environment, group stalking an American citizen and engaged in federal stalking. That's who Michael Gherkin is, and this is another corrupt government actor who's going to be removed. This is what the entity is doing while they are engaging in the group stalking using helicopters. Mike Lorenz, this is a demon that's over the Ontario Police Department, an entirely corrupt department, and they're demon possessed while they're flying in circles. This is the helicopters that they used to engage in flying over my apartment and following around in the city of Ontario. Don't forget, while I was at the Starbucks at 706 West Hope Boulevard under the fake sun that at no point could be over the Starbucks at that location where I'm showing you it's remaining stationary at Woodside, they flew over my head in a helicopter as I was doing what? Documenting the people. While I'm documenting the people inside of this apartment in the specific environment where the sun is rising and setting, which you know on its face is not the sun, and while engineer light like you see outside of this apartment and what remains inside of this apartment is present, while I just so happen to be documenting a demon group stalking in the apartment, which the entity is aware of. While I'm inside an apartment, they're in the path stalking in helicopter at a distance that is impossible to hear. It's called amplification. And by the way, they are captured in multiple years of engaging in terrorism. And these are the helicopters that they are using to engage in terrorism. This is not a legitimate police department. They do not actually have any values. Their mission is to engage in surveillance, serving Satan in doing so. And their vision is that they can engage in it covertly, secretly, and appear legitimate, which they're not. I want you to understand who is going to be removed. The demons who are group stalking in helicopters, it's going to be produced who they are, because when they're prosecuted, they're going to federal prison. And the demon that is currently over that department is going to be removed, and his name is Mike Lorenz. Okay, this is a demon. First of all, this is a demon. You have a demon-possessed entity. They're exhibiting demon possession. They're in the demonic environment. They're acting pursuant to the demonic behavior pattern. They are demon-possessed while they're engaging in the very unique criminal system. You do not have someone that's ignorant about what a department is doing with their helicopters 24 hours a day, concentrating, and by the way, over this apartment day and night. So all they did was fly at a distance over there in a circle in amplified audible activity while I'm capturing this demon in 55. This demon's going to federal prison, and the demon flying those helicopters, they're going to be produced at federal prosecution, and they're going to federal prison. This is a corrupt government actor whose leadership, as you are witnessing, is dangerous for American citizens. He will not be holding this position. Okay, that's a demon that's pacing while they're listening to me expose Mike Lorenz, who has met this is long overdue. He will not be any chief of police. He's done with law enforcement, and he is a demon-possessed criminal who is engaging in what is leading public corruption with the people of the state. He's in a position of leadership while this public corruption is underway. I'm capturing day and night terrorism, psychological torture, and harassment while a sex offense is underway by a police department. He knows all about it. He's not ignorant about it. While a pattern of conduct that is statewide, as I've documented, is remaining underway, not ignorantly by those that are over those departments. It's the same condition and criminal system and knowledge and accountability that shall be attributed to Dominic Choi over the LAPD, whose specific environment, by the way, is directly opposed to what Mike Lorenz and the Ontario Police Department are surrounded by, showing the very specific pattern of conduct that this demon of 55 is engaging in and abiding by. They're going to federal prison while the Ontario Police provide evidence against them. This is the implosion of that system. The entity sounded sirens, as I documented on podcast. The entity begins sounding helicopter because the entity is, again, trying to protect. You're not protecting the people. You just stay engaged in providing evidence that's going to prosecute the people. 55 represents the whole population. There's 144 units, Woodside Senior Apartments. They're all going to be prosecuted for domestic terrorism. And 55 is going to federal prison, and so is Tracy Banks. Okay, her physical absence from the apartment is not removing her criminal liability. She's fully engaged in federal stalking. She knows everything that's going on, including right now. And she's also been engaged in what is Title 18 text messages and calls while she's engaging in asking questions that are totally irrelevant while she's group stalking, which is what you've seen over the years with the same department kidnapping, making false allegations with demons that are employed by the Ontario Police, the same ones that are flying over my head, which you saw at 6 p.m. under a fake sun. They were flying directly over my head while I'm documenting the demons in apartment 44. And what did they do pursuant to the same pattern? I'm documenting the demon in 55, and they're arriving in a manner that is perceptible and is also demonic, meaning it's impossible to hear it at that distance, where they want to appear as though they're doing something, and they're in engineered light at the property where the fake sun is rising and setting, pursuant to the pattern of kind of documenting the people. And this demon's going to federal prison. Okay, this is Mike Lorenz. Time is up. He's going to be removed as the chief of police. And this is, again, a corrupt government actor over a demon-possessed and corrupt fire department. The entity is engaged in criminal summoning using the fire departments, using the police departments, and driving ambulances, demons, such as American Medical Response. And all they're engaging in is surveillance, using these emergency vehicles while they're engaging in elements of monitoring, light activity, audible activity, and relevant positioning. And it's massive criminal facilitation while they're engaged in federal stalking. If you're not aware of what federal stalking is, is the entity is engaged in what is massive surveillance on the venue of the internet and does so in violation of existing federal law, and that is Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. Federal stalking is what the state of California, the police department's engaged in federal stalking. So are the people of the state that are engaged in federal stalking, and so are the fire departments. All of the entity is engaged in surveillance on the venue of the internet while they're engaged in state surveillance physically, and they use helicopters to do so. That's what that's evidence of, and it's evidence against this demon who I'm documenting on the podcast. Okay, I'm documenting minutes as I am operating, typing on my laptop, typing anything on my phone, uploading anything onto the venue of the internet, which is what I'm doing. The amplified sound, as though the ceiling is cracking, is what is heard while you're walking back and forth. It's amplified audible activity and engineered light. It's pursuant to a well-documented P.O.C. This is what they're doing in every hotel that I've been staying in. This is what they were doing while I was staying in my apartment in Los Angeles. The entity was employing heavy helicopter activity while I lived at the top floor, and the demons were flying directly over my hotel building. Number 55 represents a method of ongoing amplified audible activity. And as I focus on this demon in 55, the entity begins the train, plane, and helicopter to the demise of this demon in 55, who is still being focused on while the state engages in the criminal system directly. That's all that is, because 55 is state action vicariously. This is the evidence that they're monitoring. Okay, I'm uploading evidence that's going to be used against all of them. The entity that's engaged in federal stalking is aware of everything that's being uploaded against the state. The entity is interested in it because the entity is fully engaged in it. And that the entity is engaged in what is stalking by helicopter. This is what the LAPD has been doing as I documented it day by day. Hundreds, and I have thousands of videos, but this is on the front page showing the heavy helicopter stalking, terrorism, and psychological torture that the entity employs using helicopters. That's exactly what the Ontario Police Department just did right now. You've got the LAPD, you've got the Glendale PD, you've got the Burbank Police Department, you have the Monrovia Police Department heavily engaged in this pattern of conduct, and you have the Los Angeles Fire Department engaged in this pattern of conduct. You have the Costa Mesa Police Department engaged in this pattern of conduct, the Arcadia Fire Department, the Las Vegas Metropolitan the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police in Nevada, where the fake sun remained over me, but yet it's rising and setting at Alvarado Gardens. Okay, that's speaking to what the people of the state living in the apartment directly above. They're walking around as a demon that's pacing. This is a mentally ill psychopath, and they will be subject to mental examinations when they are put in federal prison. And the demons who are over the heads of these corrupt departments are going to be removed, and they are not accepted from federal prosecution. Mike Lorenz is remaining responsible for the criminal activity that is practiced by a corrupt department who has years of state surveillance and psychological torture and kidnapping and fictitious exercise of authority. They're engaged in demonic activity, not being police officers. This is, again, currently 1:25 a.m. and the entity engaged in that because it seeks to be a distraction from documenting 55, and it's not. It's underscoring exactly what I'm capturing on the podcast. This demon of 55 represents the entity, and this one in particular is going to federal prison. This is P.O.C. It's currently 1:26 a.m., Thursday, September 26th. P.O.C.